some of that might not have been recorded. So, sorry. It's not really that. So on your desktop, all of you probably have a thing down here, down over here, that you may not have GitHub installed yet, right? Install it. Okay. If you're using your own laptop, I suggest that you download GitHub for Mac or GitHub for PC, GitHub Desktop. So let me show you where that is. So if we do the Google search, GitHub Desktop. Download it for Windows or Mac. Okay. Once you have downloaded it and run it, you should be able to, let's see. Options, right? Looks like I'm already logged in. Okay. And you should be able to do this. So if I am in my documents folder and I do this. So I've downloaded this templates master. This folder is empty. Actually, let me do this. Master. Where is it? Where am I going? Is tab. Too many tabs open. Let's close some tabs, shall we? I know, but I'm starting to lose track pretty quickly here. So there we go. Templates, view. No. Code. So if I then have download zip, and it probably is downloading it to what? Documents, downloads, templates master. Extract all. I'm going to browse and put this in documents. I am going to say new folder, WEB170, select folder, right? Cancel, come on, guys. Extract all. Browse. Select folder, great, extract. and wait for it. It takes a long time to extract stuff here on these computers for some reason. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to then say rename WEB170 SP 1701. Oh, WEB170 dot dash 01. No. Dash 01. I've got, since I have two sections, right? That's the name, but we'll do that, right? So in here then, if I have these as my template system, and I want to then make this as a GitHub repository that then I am going to upload to GitHub all the time, right? In other words, this folder right here that I just made, WEB170 Spring 17, where you have your templates, this is going to end up being your theme, okay? So let me say it like this. This templates folder, you are going to make your theme out of this templates folder. So upload this to GitHub as a repository. You can move it around. We're going to move it into a themes folder later on. But here's what you should do, okay? So if you have this on your hard drive, wherever is your template system, and you go back and open GitHub, and it says, get started by adding a repository, right? So again, this should be logged into my github.msinkula, right? Here's my old Web170 demo, but here are all my repositories. So here's the one for last spring. Right? I should be able to do this after I'm logged in. What? Oh my God, what? And just drag it over to GitHub for desktop. It's going to say, create a repository. Yes. And you wait. So here then, is your repository. Web170 Spring 1701 is mine. I am going to then publish this. My Spring demo. My Spring section 1. My Spring Web 170 section 1 demo. Okay, right? Publish. Okay. Then you click on this little thing right here, where now you are at the most current set of code. And what I typically do here is I just say first. So we then have published this repository, meaning hopefully if I refresh, there should be a Web170 Spring repository here that is empty. It just has some Git files. So it's been published to Git, right? Now I need to actually push the files to Git. If that makes, who's this making sense to? Who's done this before? Okay. So now, if I am here, I need to push these files to Git, right? So I have to leave a comment and commit. and then I wait. Created, commit first. And sometimes it takes a while. You refresh, go back here, go to repositories, refresh the page a couple of times, hit that, and they'll be there soon. We'll check back on them in a little while, right? But so all of you then should have a repo published to GitHub of your template system. Make sense, right? So then if I went back to your choose your project, create your client staging area like this, right? Then I should be able to basically you don't have to follow templates, proto-site. You can basically just have 3 links: repository code, view my templates, view my proto-site. Because basically I have view the code for templates and view the code for proto-site that are basically going to go to the same repository, right? So eventually what's going to happen is, like I said, let's go back and refresh, see if it's there yet. Added 4 minutes ago. Let's close that window. Close this one. Close that one. Close that one. Close this one. So eventually, your home.html, your main.html, and your style sheet, right? We are going to be converting that into the files for WordPress, for a WordPress theme. Does that sort of make sense to you guys? Yes? Okay, we'll check back on that repository in a few minutes. Let's go back to the schedule and talk about what is WordPress, and then the anatomy of a WordPress site, and also the anatomy of a WordPress theme. Okay, so what is WordPress? Well, WordPress is basically a powerful and fascinating open source project and content management system. It's a state-of-the-art publishing platform, right? Think of it as kind of Microsoft Word for the web, except good. So WordPress started out as a blogging platform, right? Where, what exactly is a blog? Well, a blog is a compound word for web and log, also known as a blog, right? So I've had a blog for a while where I haven't posted anything in a long time, but my Twitter feed comes through here. My toddler totally had man flu the other day. I so wish I would have videotaped him just being like, the world is ending, I'm sick, right? Who's kidding? And then Dad got the man flu as well. So I will post things like, no more spider in the bathtub. When I kill a spider late at night, this is how I inform my wife of that, because that's my job around the house. I am chief spider killer. Okay. But basically, a blog is something where you can post timely content about, things like, hey, give me that job at Seattle Central, or hey, look, we had a baby, woo, right? I'm a blog. Well, WordPress started out in about 2007, 2006, maybe 2005 as a blogging software, kind of a competitor to LiveJournal and Blogger and those platforms, right? But because WordPress was set up the way it was set up, right? In other words, everything in WordPress is what? Remembers. What kind of an object? Post object, right? Everything in WordPress is a post object, whether it's a page, a posting, a staff member, an image, attachment, right? An event, etc. Everything is a post object. So those post objects then have properties. First and foremost, they have an ID number, okay? Then they have titles, they may have captions, they may have content, they may have this, they may have that. So if you can realize that everything in WordPress is a post object, then it's not too far of a leap if you've done some programming, right, to say, I want to get the titles, again, if we look at, let's just go back to the business site that I just revamped a little bit. And then we go to, let's leave that repository open. Premium Design Works. Front dash page. So again, if you realize that, then, and here's what I was talking about. Page 185. Well, if I log into then my dashboard for my business site, and I go to my pages, right? So here is the WordPress dashboard, okay? So when we say it's a content management system, basically what is a content management system? A system that allows you to manage content, right? So Facebook, content management system. In other words, when you log into Facebook, right, and post things like, hey, look, I made a posting with a colored background. Woo! Yeah. I'm not pointing anybody out. Who did that yesterday? Michael Jacobs. Welcome back to Facebook, Michael Jacobs. Yeah, yeah. We've missed you. So if you were using something like that, then that's a content management system, okay, where you can upload photos, you can make postings, et cetera, et cetera. So here is then the dashboard where we have then posts, media, links, pages. We can view comments, contact. This is a plugin that I'm using. Appearance, we can then go and take a look at themes, right? I only have 2 themes in here, my old one and my new one. I don't have any of the pre-existing ones or the pre-made ones or somebody else's theme in there, right? Plugins. So we can see that some of my plugins need to be updated, but you know, I like to test them before I update them. So Ultimate Coming Soon page plugins being depreciated. Oh yeah, that's right. I need to, yeah, whatever. Users, we have one user here. Tools, settings. So if I go to general settings, here's the site title, here's my tagline, this is the URL, this is the site address, which are 2 different things, and we'll talk about that later, right? So on and so forth. If I go to my page tree or my list of pages, right? Again, usability research, search engine optimization, web design and development, graphic design and branding are, so if I go to edit usability research, here is the title. Here is the content for the page. Remember when I was talking about short code? This is an example of short code right here. Meaning, if I want to go get case study 1711, right, in here, in the WordPress admin dashboard, whatever you want to call it, the content editor, rich text editor, editor box, whatever you want to call it. They have a name for it. I can never remember it. You can't put PHP in here. So to put PHP in there, meaning if you have a function that you want to pass through there, like go get case study 1711, you then have to do it like this. You can write a function in your functions file, right? And tell it to use the shortcode case study, which will use this function, and I can pass the ID number through it. Therefore, I can say in the content editor, shortcode case study ID 1711, and this will access that function from the functions file and do the dirty work I need to do. Like, go get the title, the excerpt, the image, and the link, right? Use that HTML to then put those things in the HTML, which then here is case study 1711 from the blog, right? So if I went and we went to this one and I hit edit post, see this number right there? So when you make a post or a page or anything in WordPress, post equals 1711. In other words, it is the post object number 1711, right? That post object then has a title, has content to it, has a category, has an excerpt, has a featured image, right? So if I'm going to get case study 1711, I want to get the title, the featured image, the excerpt, and a link, right? Put the link on the title, put the link on the read more, and on the image, right? Post object, properties of said post object. Make sense? So again, once you realize that, holy shit, it's not just a blogging platform anymore, right? It's a full-out content management system that, yeah, you'll get people that will argue, well, WordPress is really just posts and pages and blah, 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 blah. I've heard that from really hardcore developers. And like I said, my argument is, everything's a post object, right? So how many of you have ever used Drupal? Drupal is really complex and does not have very good documentation, right? Where WordPress has really great documentation. Where Drupal works off of blocks, okay? WordPress works off of post objects, same thing. That's my antidote for that. You guys have no idea what I'm talking about, but just note that in your head. And anytime somebody says Drupal is the way to go, just say, post object, and you'll win the argument. Trust me. Believe me. You'll win it bigly. Okay, that's enough. So, so then if I go to the services page, right, and I go to edit page, the services page is post 185. Right? So then if on the front page, that's the wrong repository. If on the front page then, I can code it to say, the post parent is 185. In other words, go get the children of 185. And in a loop, here is the WordPress loop. If have posts, while have posts, put the post there, write out some HTML, get the excerpt, the permalink, the title, et cetera, okay? Going back here. So again, most blogs offer following features: automatic creation of web pages based on contents, formatting, ability to include text, the ability for readers to comment on and create discussion. We are not going to do comments in this class. Right? That's the one thing. We're not going to set up a comments section, that kind of thing. I went a different direction. Right? But we'll kind of talk about it later. Link to related sites or blogs. But basically, WordPress allows you to have this admin. Okay? So again, what I kind of brought up on Monday was there are two different places that you can find WordPress. One is WordPress.com, which is this is the locked down version that they host. Meaning, has anybody ever signed up for a WordPress.com account? Huh? Yeah. Are you stuck there now? You can't get it off of it?
No, I believe that I let that URL expire and I just moved.
Okay. Right. In other words, if you are hosting a URL that you registered with WordPress and you want to then start customizing it, again, WordPress.com will not allow you under the hood to access the files. So you can't access the code and make customization. You only have access through the administration panel, and that's it. And they don't let you touch the code in the administration panel. So if you have it hosted on your own server, like I do, you can use the editor here to access your code. Don't. Do not. Don't do that. And here's why. Eventually, in the 210 class, you are going to change. There's a potential that you are never going to FTP ever again after Web 210. And here's what I mean by that. Here's the workflow that we use then in Web 210. Has anybody ever used MAMP or WAMP or XAMPP or something like that? A local environment? Okay. Apparently there's a plugin in WordPress too that will allow you to make WordPress into its own local environment. I haven't explored it yet. But basically in the 210 class, you're going to have a series of developers that are all working on the same repository. Okay? So what I mean by that is in GitHub, right? If all of you are working, let's say 4 of you are working on the same repository, you are going to be pushing code edits to GitHub. And then here, when you hit the sync button, right, and we're committing sync, if let's say I'm working with Michael, and Michael is working on one file, and I'm working on another file all at the same time, right? And Michael pushes his stuff to GitHub about 3 p.m. Okay, and I push my stuff or commit in sync to GitHub at 3:15, right? I'm pushing the code that I did to GitHub as well as pulling the code that he had just pushed up to GitHub to my local computer, right? Does that make sense? So basically, we're all pushing and pulling, so we all have the same exact code sets on our laptops or on our local computers, right? Sometimes we will run into conflicts. Oops, we worked on the same file in the same few lines of code, and what it will do is it will call that out as a conflict and give us both versions, and somebody will have to go in there and say, and clean it up and make sure that we only have one set and then push that to GitHub, right? So you are going to be constantly then working in 210, pushing and pulling to GitHub like that, right? Then when it's time to get all the changes to your development server, you are actually going to pull the theme code or whatever code from GitHub to the server. How many of you have ever logged in using SSH? Okay. Secure shell. You're going to log in command line to your server and run a command after you set up your private your private public key pair stuff. That's another class, don't worry about it. But you will run a command, get pull origin master. Okay? So when I'm working on my business site, my personal site, my school site, if I'm doing any theme development stuff like that, I am working locally on, so when I did the updates over spring break, I was working on a version of my laptop. Okay? And then once I was ready to publish it to my live server, I ran get pull origin master, and so I logged into my server. My server went to GitHub and pulled the latest version from GitHub. Okay. In this class, I'm still going to be using FTP. Okay. So, meaning I'm still going to use Dreamweaver. For all you haters out there, I don't care. So here I have my old templates. I can't bump that up in size, can I? Nope. Here then is my original demo for WordPress. Here is Spring 15, here is Spring 16. Again, I am going to be making WordPress folders for Spring 17.01, Spring 17.02. Okay. So in terms of going back to what is WordPress, then there is WordPress.org. Well, what's the difference? This is where you actually download WordPress. So you can then host WordPress on your own servers. Meaning, if I download WordPress, which I'm not going to do now, we'll do it all together later on. If I download WordPress and I put it in a folder on my server, I can't zoom in on this, can I? Can everybody see that? Let's go over here. Bring that over and say remote server. Close tab group. Well, I'll have to look into how I can bump that up in size, but for now, it's going to stay that way. So here then, if you see this folder highlighted here, right? This is what we're going to do. You're going to install WordPress in a folder on whatever domain. Okay? There will be folders WP admin, WP content, WP includes, index.php, readme, license, WP activate, blah, 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 right? In other words, when you download WordPress, come on, shift select all of them. There you go. This is the WordPress burrito that you are downloading, that then you are putting onto your server. First rule of WordPress, do not edit WordPress core. What do you think the second rule of WordPress is? No.
Don't talk about its core.
Do not edit WordPress core. It just gets louder, that's all, right? In the Fight Club, first rule of Fight Club, don't talk about Fight Club. Second rule of Fight Club, do not talk about Fight Club. Right? In other words, don't go into the core files and edit stuff. You will things all to hell. Do not do it. Instead, the only place that you are going to be editing things is in the WP content folder. There is a themes folder. Where in this themes folder, you can see that I have a few different themes in there. When you download WordPress, it's going to come with some pre-existing default WordPress themes. 2015, 14, 2016, right? I don't know if they have 2017, we'll see when you download. That for a while, we are going to use pre-existing themes, okay? When we are setting up content in the WordPress dashboard. So if I then go to my WordPress demo, and if I can actually remember my password, let's see, this will be fun. So if I go to my demo proto site, and I go to log in, nope. One last shot. Let's go to my spring 16 one. Nope. Get there, guys. Before I know what I'm doing. No, no, you're not. I'm trying to show you where themes live. So here's my spring 16. Hey, look at that, I remembered that password. So if we go to then themes, right? This is where those default themes, you can choose those, right? We are then going to start out with the default themes. We are then going to upload our own theme or a pre-existing theme to actually put content in and show you how to upload and download or use a pre-existing theme. And then we are going to turn our template system into its own theme. Okay. So that takes me to, we go back to the schedule. Anatomy of a WordPress site. So again, mainly things work off of postings and pages, right? So if I go back to, let's see, my Premium Design Works. When you download WordPress and start using WordPress, the two most common, let's say like this, two most common pages, or things that you will, content that is viewable content in WordPress, meaning if I go to back to, let's close that. If I go back to my site here, right, go to the home page, and I look at these navigation items here. These are your typical pages, right? Doesn't take a brain surgeon to know that. These are your pages. If we go to the blog section, then these are postings. So what's the difference? Who can kind of guess? Pages versus postings. I'll tell you. I love those questions where people are like, well, why don't you just tell us, Mike? Okay. Explain it like this. I've got a dry erase marker. Let me go see if the lab has one. So let's say it like this. Remember in Web 200 when we talked about information protection, or Web 105 too. Home. About. Services. portfolio, blog, contacts, services has subpages, portfolio has subpages, blog has categories, okay, in the way I have it set up. So pages are typically considered to be static content in your information architecture, right? Remember when you did your card sort, you did your affinity diagram, and you were talking about topics that then had to be categorized into, or had to be grouped into groups with appropriate labels. True? Okay. Those are pages. Postings, then, you can have a list of postings housed under the section called blog. You can even have categories on the postings, but postings are, think of it in terms of newspaper articles. Postings are timely content, articles, tutorials, news postings, case studies, some kind of timely content, right, that serves that type of purpose. Does that make sense? So therefore, the way a lot of people, that's what I'm saying, like, I've heard developers say, well, WordPress is broken into pages and postings, and that's not the most effective way to do it. Again, my answer is post object. So, right? So in the dashboard then, we have a set of pages that we can set up in a hierarchical format, right? Where if I go to usability research and go to edit it, I can say use the default template and give it the parent page of services, right? So that it sits as a subpage under the parent page of services. And if I've set up my navigation system correctly, then when we go to the services page, you will see then the sub-navigation of the subpages. I've also written functionality to bring in the subpages into the content area here. Versus then postings are more of a timely article, tutorial, news posting. In other words, when you go to blogs like, I don't know, you're searching for something, and you ever end up on CSS strips or something like that. I'm guessing more often than not, when you go to things like that, you are ending up on a timely article posting that then can be categorized, right? So if I then go to edit this post and notice it says edit post, it still looks the same in terms of the editor. We can put in a title, we can put in our content, right? We can write an excerpt for it. We can even use custom fields. We'll talk about those later. We can then use a featured image, etc. But if we go over here, then instead of what is its parent page, what's its category is now how you organize that. So I have for my categories, I have articles, tutorials, and case studies. So when it looks like, when you go to the blog, it looks like there are subpages here, but instead of subpages, those are categories that then will show you everything under articles, everything under case studies, everything under tutorials. Does that make sense? Okay. If it doesn't, think of it in terms of postings, timely content that can be categorized, that can be given a category. pages, static content that can be given a parent page. Does that make sense? Like the gateway destination. Okay. But both of them are still, like I said, both of them are post objects. Okay. Again, same thing. If I go to media, my media library where I've uploaded a lot of files, and if I go here, right, this image that has been uploaded is still a post object with a number. Okay. Is that making any sense? Kinda. So lastly, you can see here that, so this is kind of an old screenshot, but post categories, pages, links, postings. It depends on then how you want to set up your site. Okay, so how you set up your site then is determined by you build your theme. So what's a theme? Well, if I go back to, I closed my window, didn't I? WordPress, Spring 16. This is my theme. It's purple because I used this design up at UW. But if I went back to Appearance, Themes, and did a live view of Princess, which is a theme that somebody made, I still have the navigation, but there's not really any content in there. Here's the content, but it looks a certain way. It is presented a certain way. In other words, we go back to a photo in Web105. The holy triangle of web design. You have your HTML markup. You have your CSS presentation. You have your JavaScript interaction. So far, so good with me? Those three should be separated. Right? In other words, you should not be, does anybody, how many of you have taken JavaScript? How many of you remember the good old days of writing the event handlers actually in the HTML? Let me show you what I'm talking about. This. How many of you have ever done an event handler actually in the HTML like this? That's all. That breaks the holy triangle of web design. Right? Do you want to be a center, Joss? You already are? Okay. In other words, this is an example of when JavaScript was still being developed, right, of how you would utilize JavaScript. You would say on this anchor tag, when this anchor tag is clicked, perform the new window function that opens up this page, which is named this, and has a width of that. Right? So a pop-up window kind of thing. Okay. You shouldn't do pop-up windows anymore either. But that was way back when. in the time before time. Because it's just like writing CSS in your line CSS, right? It's not efficient, okay? Where you have to go into the markup to edit an event handler that pulls a function from another file, right? Versus DOM scripting, which is the way we do things now, where, and especially if you're doing it like I showed you guys in Web 200, right? Where you are using jQuery and you're putting the event handler or event listener, some people call it an event listener. How many of you have heard that term? Like, anybody know Thomas Wilborn? He's always calling it an event listener. And I'm like, it's handler. Huh? I'm pretty sure they're the same, aren't they? You know what is an event listener? In other words, if I say click when the toggle is clicked, that's an event listener. Yeah, they're the same thing. I call it event handler. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a form handler. What's the difference between a method and a function? In JavaScript, a method is a predefined function, where a function is an author-defined function. We could do this all day if you want. Okay. So, but separating it out like this is the better way to go, because then it's all in one file, and you don't have to then on every A tag through a document, right, put the same event handler, lister, or whatever. Okay. So over the years, then the holy trinity of web design has been markup, presentation, interaction, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. That then leaves, well, what's PHP, right? So PHP, I describe PHP as HTML's bigger brother, right? It pushes HTML around, tells it what to do, where to show up, right, et cetera, like that. It's kind of like data. Come on, let's talk about Dan on tape. Come on, now, Kristen.
Boo!
Thank you, thank you. PHP then pre-processes HTML in terms of, right, the conditional whatever, whatever. So what we're going to do then in our themes, right, so let's take a look at where a theme lives. So again, in our, and we'll go over this again, don't worry. In our themes folder, then, this is where we, so in our WordPress folder, in WP content, in the themes folder, you can see this is where we have plugins. This is where we have uploads as well, right? So this is stuff that you can modify in the WP content folder. Only modify stuff in the WP content folder, nothing, well, there's the config file as well. We'll get to it. So in this theme folder, then, you can see a list of files, right? Footer, PHP, front page.php, functions, header, home. This is my template, home HTML, index.php, the template main.html, page.php, so on and so forth. So here's what's happening. As you make your way through a site, take a look here. We're going to do this. we're going to tag our pages and our postings. Not really tagging our pages and our postings. We're going to tag the file that's being used. Right? So on our home page, our static home page, get to that, it's using the file front-page. If I go to the About page, it is using page.php. Everybody see that? Okay. If I go to the blog, this is still a page, but it's using index.php. If I go to one of these postings, then it's using single.php. So essentially, we are creating then template files that we are then going to be writing PHP loops and conditions to present our content. Okay? So if we look at then, going back to here, and let's say I open up front-page. This is where then I have the loop. Talk about that later. I can then use the title function, the content function, so on and so forth, right? So get header, get flex slider, etc. So in our theme, that's what we're editing. So your theme is basically your site. Right? So when you, in Web 120 or Web 200, did your final project, right? And you wrote the HTML and the CSS, and you chopped it up into PHP includes. Everybody's with me so far, right? And then you had to hand code in the content of the page, right? Instead of hand coding in the content of the page, we are then going to be using what's called the WordPress loop to grab the content for whatever post ID, okay? We are also, we can do things like query posts, show 5, show the title for the latest 5 postings, and link to that posting. So essentially, in your theme, right, you can customize, again, everything's post object. You can, in your theme, using the WordPress framework, again, what's programming? What does Simon from Lynda say? You know, the British guy with the microphone. You know what I'm talking about. What's programming? It's a blank of blank. It's a set of instructions. Right? When I first heard that years and years and years and years ago, I was like, no, these things are way too complex. That's not a set of instructions. And then I started writing instructions. And I was like, holy shit. You have to give instructions for every last condition, every last scenario, every last everything. So if there is a bug in the code, who's ever been a software tester? Wait, yeah. Right? So if you are testing the game and you're hovering over whatever alien ship you fire things, and you know you hit it, but it doesn't blow up. And then you go try to do another one, it doesn't blow up. There's a bug in the code. There's a bug in the instructions. That was supposed to blow up when I was hovering over coordinates, the same coordinates as that thing was. Yeah. Right? Set of instructions. That's actually kind of a metaphor from, or an example from Simon. So if you can wrap your head around that, we are basically going to be writing a set of instructions to, if we want then to have on our home page the latest services with the title, with an excerpt, with a link to go to that page, and an icon, we have to instruct it to do so. And we do that in our theme files. Make sense? That's the overview of what WordPress is and how powerful WordPress can be. Right? Once you go WordPress, you're never going to do anything else again. At least for the types of sites that WordPress is good for, like your basic business, nonprofit, brochure, functionality type sites. Again, you're not going to build an Amazon.com on WordPress, right? You're not going to build a lot of different sites on WordPress, but for the type of site that you are going to build on WordPress, it is the shit. Right? So that's why it's gained in popularity. Right? So there you have it. So what you guys need to do to prep for your template files. Like I said, if you, again, let's pick on Christopher, because Christopher loves when because I always tell Christopher, we were talking about him, right? It drives him nuts, right? And he always wants to take down his work so I can't pick on him. And I'm like, no, don't, I need it. I need you, man. So again, if you did a project in Web 200, and if I go, Christopher, if I go to your project, man, and it's not there anymore, I'm going to be pissed. Good. So let's say you built this prototype in Web 200. Don't do this. Don't go back to these templates because you may have changed some stuff, right? Instead, go to your prototype. You need to isolate away your home, main, and style sheet. So basically do this. Create a new file, HTML, right? Go to the site, view page source, select all. There's your home page template. Do that then for your main page template, and then for your CSS files, right? Get your CSS files and package them all up into its little box with home, main, style sheet. If you had other style sheets, right? Scripts, images, fonts, etc., package it up like this. Does that make sense? So that's how you should take your Web 120 and or your Web 200 final projects and make your template system. Right? And then, like I said, make that into a file that's on your hard drive somewhere, push it to GitHub. Let's go see if our theme is on, if my repository is there. Huh. Hello. Sync. Failed to sync. You might need to open shell and debug. Maybe GitHub isn't working. Somebody else test it, right? And here's the thing. If doing GitHub like this fails, you can also do GitHub like this. So if this is a repository that I made, sign in. You might want to just upload stuff to GitHub like that, drag and drop. Make a repository and hold on a second. What was your question? Did you have a question? So basically, you can, you might want to go that way instead of using the GitHub desktop on these computers. If you're on your own computer, get used to using the desktop on your own computer. I think I'm probably just going to do it drag and drop like this in the classroom because I don't know if GitHub. It doesn't seem like it's working, which is kind of I'll have to talk to like Stoney and some other people. So, make sense?
Is main HTML what will eventually be the page, the skeleton of the page? Okay. One's obviously your main page. And then like my template, I already have a slider built into it. What is the goal to generate slider content automatically? Okay.
Yeah, because eventually, what slider are you using?
I use this.
Okay. We'll change to flex slider just because I have that markup, right? It'll be the same concept, right? Where we're going to upload photos to a page, right? And then show you how to go in and get the attachments of that page, present them in the flex slider markup to have it be a slider, which you could do with the same thing with any other slider you imagine it. But yeah, that's basically what we're going to do. If you want to see the tutorial on it, there are two articles that, let's actually go to my schedule. There are two lectures that are not on my school site. They live on my business site. And those two are search engine optimization without using a plugin, and then create a flex slider gallery. So basically what we're going to do then is we're going to write a function in the functions file that then, if there are images attached to the page for each one of those, go get that image and display it inside the list items that flex slider controls. So I mean, you could do it with Slick. Because I'm assuming that it's built the same way, where you have markup that then either has classes or classes that then their JavaScript file accesses. Yeah. Yeah. So same thing. Does that make sense? Any questions? Does this look like you're going to have an interesting time in this class? At least you'll know how to use WordPress and make some money. Like I said, man, $60, $75 an hour. Oh yeah. That's what I charge for WordPress development. Oh yeah. Hell yeah. I'm not in this to make friends. If I was, I'd be a pro wrestler. That's a joke, because they're not in it for friends, they're in it for the money. Who watches wrestling knows what I'm talking about. I hate all of it.
I used to.
Yeah.
Find out the Hardy Boys came back.
Yeah, yeah,
I have to watch that.
yeah, they came back at WrestleMania, man. That was one of the biggest
I
pops
was
ever.
watching that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I haven't really watched Broken that far this week or something, So I've seen some of it, but yeah, it'll be good. See, all of you should watch wrestling. Right? That's my man soap opera. And yes, I know it's fake. You don't have to tell me that. I pretend it's not. Leave me alone. When they bleed, it's real. Been to a couple. Not since I've had kids, and usually when they come through Seattle, it's on a Monday or Tuesday night I'm teaching. So, which is unfortunate that I have to suffer with you bastards instead of going and watching wrestling. All right, so what assignment should we give to those people that weren't here?